got here and we were just planning to help. We weren't planning to manage the farm. His dad was dealing with some health struggles. It just all kind of happened. We were doing a lot of the labor. Then after a couple years of being here, somehow we became the farmers.
End of February, I started having a headache. Thought, oh, I just got whatever the kids had, popped the vitamins and the Tylenol and write it out, and then got home and my headache was excruciating.
He asked to go to the doctor, which I thought, this is bad.
Yeah, then found infection in the blood.
And he was jaundiced, so they thought it was in his abdomen.
Right, so they scanned my abdomen and there was something going on with my liver and my gallbladder too, so they gave me antibiotic to treat that. So by day 2.5 of having some medicine in me, I was feeling better, and then by the time I'd finished that regimen, day 7, I felt.
He was back to touring the barn by himself, and I did the whole look at me, farmer. You promise me, look me in the eyes. If you feel any worse, you have to tell me.
I felt fine that Saturday morning. By the afternoon, the kids were helping me with a project in one of our shops, and I started losing ability to speak. I could think of the words that I wanted to say, but garbage came out of my mouth, like just blah, blah. And they didn't know what to do. They thought I was just being weird. I was starting to have,
he was starting to have muscle
stroke-like symptoms, and then Nicole and the kids got me to the emergency room, which was only just a mile away, so that was fortunate. And I had a massive seizure right on the table, scanned stuff, and that's where they found it was something going on with my brain.
When we brought him in the door, he was drooling and he had face droop on one side, and the kids said, well, he's been doing weird stuff for like 3 hours. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's too late, like we've lost him. So they scanned him to see if he had had a stroke, and they said, well, the good news is he didn't have a stroke. The bad news is he's got 4 spots on his brain, and they just knew we can't do anything with that here, so we got to get you out of here quick. He was in Des Moines for a day until they figured out, look, we can't treat this either. We've got to get you to Iowa City, so they have the tools, they can do the surgery. Got him to Iowa City, they did 1 brain surgery, and they found out it was a bacteria that's usually in our throats.
They sent me home for a month on heavy IV antibiotics, and then scanned me in another month. And my symptoms had been improving.
Barely. He slept all the time, and he couldn't read. It was an awful month.
But because I was getting a little bit better, we expected good results from that scan, but everything had gotten bigger. Had me in the hospital at Iowa City for another 10 days. My symptoms were getting a lot better. Just jumping up to another plateau, and then being a while, and then jumping up to another. And it's still like, I'm not better. This time of year, normally we'd be doing 15-hour days and do it for 8 weeks straight, and that'd be, heaven. Like, that's what it's the magic of harvest, and I can do anything for about 45 minutes.
And then he has to brain rest. While he was in the hospital, I hit my 10-year cancer diagnosis anniversary, and it was like a celebration, but not. So when I started regrouping, I realized, I missed a couple of self-checks in the midst of all this chaos. And so I did a self-check, and I was like, oh no, that is not supposed to be there. I need to go in. That was the end of May, and so he's getting better, but he still needs support. I had an MRI, I had a biopsy, and shortly after that they were like, yeah, you have cancer, but it's not breast cancer again, it's sarcoma from the radiation, which is really rare, but it's a side effect of radiation, and the 10-year mark is when they would find it. There's not a lot of people that have had it, but if you had to choose one, that's the one to choose. So July 11th, I had my first surgery. The pathology came back, and the surgeon called and said, we need to do surgery again. She said, we're gonna have to take out some muscle and maybe go down to the bone. So they did another surgery on the 20th of July, got the margins, and everything was clean. So that seemed to be a really great thing. Then I got an infection, so I was in the hospital. I had sepsis. Like, really? Could this get any worse? It was really challenging. I mean, the month of August was hard. So in the midst of all of that, one gal that works for Iowa Soybean, she had reached out to me and said, hey, I really think you guys could benefit from farm rescue.